Fishing had always been my escape, but that night at Foggy Lake became something I would never forget. I had been invited by a friend, Mark, who swore this secluded lake was the perfect spot to catch massive bass. I didn't know then that Foggy Lake had a reputation, a whispered story of vanished fishermen and strange lights reflecting off its misty surface. But I didn't care. I wanted solitude, the comfort of a rod in my hands, and water lapping at the shore. We arrived just before sunset. The sky was a deep indigo, streaked with crimson, the last light slipping into the horizon. Fog already hovered above the lake in thick, gray blankets, curling around trees and docks as if alive. The lake looked beautiful, almost surreal, but something in the air felt wrong. Heavy, stagnant. We carried our gear down the narrow, muddy path to the water's edge. Mark had brought a small wooden rowboat, tied to a rotting dock that leaned slightly to the left. The boards creaked under our weight, and the smell of damp rot filled the air. We set our lanterns down and began baiting hooks. Everything seemed normal, almost peaceful, until it wasn't. The first bite came swiftly, a hard pull that nearly yanked my rod from my hands. But when I reeled in, the line snapped. I frowned. A large fish, maybe or a branch. But then Mark called out, his voice shaking slightly. "Did you see that?" I looked up. There, on the far edge of the lake, barely visible through the fog, a dark figure crouched at the water's edge. It was humanoid, but its limbs were twisted, long, and spindly, bending in ways a human body shouldn't bend. It didn't move, didn't blink, didn't seem alive, but it stared at us. "Probably a deer," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. I had no idea why we hadn't noticed it sooner, why it had just appeared out of nowhere. As the night deepened, the fog thickened. The lanterns did little to pierce the gray haze. I cast my line again, trying to focus on fishing, trying to ignore the growing sense of dread curling in my stomach. The water was too still, too quiet. Then the tug came again. Hard, different, intelligent. The rod bent sharply, and I felt the weight beneath the surface, alive. I braced myself, pulling with all my strength. The water erupted as something massive shifted beneath the boat. I stumbled, almost falling into the black lake. The boat rocked violently, splashes hitting both of us. Mark yelled, and I could see terror etched across his face. The line went slack. When I looked, the water near the boat had darkened unnaturally, swirling as if the lake itself was pulling. And then I heard it, a whisper, low, guttural, dripping wet, almost like it came from underwater itself. "Help us!" I froze. My heart raced, every muscle tight. Mark's eyes were wide, and he whispered, "Did you hear that?" Before I could respond, the fog thickened further, blotting out everything. Shapes moved within it, too fast for the eye to follow. The boat tipped slightly, and I glimpsed something under the water, pale, bloated limbs rising just beneath the surface, moving as if testing the air. The whisper came again, closer now, echoing around the boat. "Joins." Mark grabbed the lantern and swung it toward the fog. The beam cut through the gray and landed on a shape. My stomach turned. Another figure, tall, thin, hair clinging wetly to its face, stared at us. Its eyes, they were hollow, dark, and unblinking. Its mouth opened unnaturally wide, as if it had forgotten how to close it. I screamed. The boat rocked violently again. My rod slipped from my hands, clanging against the side. The water erupted beside the boat. Something massive, far too big for a fish, slithered just beneath the surface. Its presence radiated pure malice. We tried to paddle back to the dock. The oars met resistance, as if something beneath the water was holding them down. Every stroke felt like dragging through thick mud. My arms burned, my lungs heaved. The fog seemed to thicken around us, pressing down. Mark whispered frantically, "We should have stayed home." Suddenly, the lanterns went out. Darkness swallowed the boat entirely. All I could see was the faint outline of the water around us, rippling unnaturally. Then came the sound, the wet, dragging footsteps of something moving around the boat. Not in the water, on the surface. Something was walking, crawling along the water itself. moving impossibly fast, circling us. I could hear its breathing now. Not human. Wet. Hollow. Sloshing like it had been submerged too long. My blood ran cold. A hand shot out of the water, grabbing the side of the boat. Pale, elongated webbed fingers. My grip on the oar slipped. Another hand emerged, dragging along the edge of the boat, scratching. The wood groaned under the weight, threatening to capsize. Mark shrieked. I screamed. The boat rocked violently, splashing us with cold, black water. Something massive shifted beneath us, thrashing. My vision blurred. Then the whisper. Direct. Behind my ear. Cold, wet. Join us. I turned sharply, and the fog seemed to pulse. The figures multiplied, dozens of shapes emerging from the gray haze. Some rose fully from the water, their limbs bending grotesquely, hair clinging, mouths open wide. Their eyes stared into mine, unblinking, hollow, and hungry. I grabbed Mark's arm. We need to jump. Now. We leapt into the lake. The water was icy, choking, but we couldn't stay in the boat. The figures surged toward us, moving with impossible speed. I felt a hand brush my leg, cold and slimy. Another touched my back, dragging me downward. We swam, panic lending strength. My lungs burned, my heart hammered. Every stroke felt like a fight for survival against something not meant to exist in our world. The fog closed around us, muffling sound, swallowing light. We reached the shore, dragging ourselves onto mud and roots. Gasping, shivering, soaked, we looked back. The lake had returned to a mirror of black stillness. No shapes, no movement, nothing but fog curling over the surface. We didn't speak. We didn't move. I grabbed Mark's hand, and we ran. Branches tore at our clothes, roots clawed at our feet, but nothing else came after us. Not visibly. We reached the truck and collapsed inside. Mark's eyes were wide, trembling. My hand shook so badly I could barely grip the wheel. We drove in silence for what felt like hours, neither of us daring to look back. When I finally arrived home, I thought the nightmare was over. But it wasn't. That night in my bedroom, I heard the breathing. Not faint, not distant. It came from the corner of the room, low, wet, and hollow. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it, surrounding me, waiting, watching. The whispers came too, soft and persistent. Joins. I checked the lake the next day. The surface was calm, sun reflecting off it as if nothing had happened. No ripples, no shapes, no figures. My fishing gear from the night before was gone, swept away or hidden. But I knew better. I knew what I had seen, what I had felt, and the fog would be back. The whispers haven't stopped since. Some nights, I hear them in my sleep. Sometimes, I wake up to the sound of wet footsteps circling my bed. I haven't gone fishing since that night, and I doubt I ever will, because Foggy Lake isn't just water. It remembers, it waits, and it drags everything it can back beneath the surface. Eventually, I've been fishing for years, alone and in groups, in rivers, lakes, and creeks that were supposedly haunted, cursed, or just avoided by locals. Nothing had ever scared me, until the night I went to Moonlit Lake. Everyone called it that because the surface shone like silver under the full moon, but the locals whispered about disappearances and strange shapes drifting along the water after dark. I dismissed their stories as superstition until I saw it. It began with the drive. The dirt road to the lake was narrow, winding through dense forest that pressed in on the headlights like a black wall. I had left town late, around 10:30 p.m., thinking the late hour would guarantee solitude. The moon hung low, full and round, reflected in puddles along the road like pale eyes watching me. I felt a chill, though it was midsummer. The deeper I drove into the woods, the heavier the air became, almost thick enough to taste. When I arrived at the small clearing by the lake, the first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. Not the pleasant quiet of a lake at night. This was oppressive, unnatural. No insects chirping, no wind rustling leaves, just a dense stillness. The water's surface was glassy, reflecting the moon like a mirror. Mist drifted in rolling sheets across the lake, hiding the far shore completely. I parked my truck and carried my gear to the old dock. The boards were rotting, wobbling under my weight. The smell of damp wood and mud was overpowering. I set up my lantern and fishing rod and cast my line. I tried to focus on the rhythm of the bobber floating on the still water, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Time passed. Nothing. Just the occasional ripple as a fish moved beneath the surface. Then I noticed a disturbance farther out in the lake. A shadow, long and dark, moved beneath the moonlight. I froze. The water didn't ripple like a fish's wake. It glided unnatural, deliberate. Then I saw it, a shape breaking the surface. Pale, elongated, limbs bending in impossible angles. Hair clung to its face, and its head tilted unnaturally, as if it were observing me. My heart pounded, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I told myself it was a deer or maybe a drowned tree, but my gut screamed otherwise. The bobber jerked violently in my hands, as if something massive had grabbed it. I tried to reel in, but the line pulled harder, faster, like it was alive. I stumbled backward, nearly falling off the dock. The shape beneath the water moved toward me. I grabbed my lantern, swinging it toward the figure. The light revealed its eyes, or where eyes should have been. Deep, hollow voids, reflecting nothing, yet piercing me entirely. Its mouth opened slowly, far wider than it should, teeth jagged and yellowed, lips pulled back as if frozen in a grotesque grin. I screamed and stumbled backward, almost tripping. My lantern slipped from my hands and hit the water with a splash, extinguishing immediately. Darkness engulfed me. The fog thickened, curling around the dock, the water, and me. Something touched the dock, not lightly. A wet, heavy press, like a massive hand testing its strength. My legs went cold. Another press, and then I heard the whispering, "Come closer." The voice was wet, gurgling, as if coming from the depths of the lake itself. I backed up, slipping in the mud. Another shape emerged, this one even taller, its limbs grotesque and fluid, moving as if the water had shaped them. More followed. They didn't swim. They drifted, gliding across the surface toward me. I ran. My boots sank into mud and roots as I scrambled for the forest edge. Behind me, the dock creaked, board snapping. Water splashed violently, though I didn't see it. The whispering grew louder, surrounding me, moving with me. "Closer, join us." Branches clawed at my arms and face, but I didn't stop. Not until I reached my truck. I threw the door open, slammed it shut behind me, and locked it. My hand shook so badly I could barely grip the keys. I looked back. The lake was calm again. No shapes, no movement, nothing but fog curling over the silver surface. I shook my head, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. I started the engine, my hands trembling violently. Driving back, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror. Shadows flickered across the tree line, moving in ways they shouldn't. I told myself it was fatigue or maybe hallucination from adrenaline. But when I reached town and parked outside my apartment, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The water from Moonlit Lake had followed me. Not literally, but in the form of damp footprints on my front steps. Long, elongated web toes, the mud still fresh. No one else had been there. No one could have made them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I heard the whispers again, faint, wet, coming from every corner of my apartment. "Closer, join us." Weeks passed. I avoided lakes, rivers, anything that could lead me back to that dock. But the whispers never stopped. They followed me into my dreams, into quiet moments during the day, into the silence of my apartment. Then one night, I woke to the sound of water dripping. Not a faucet, not a leak, dripping from the ceiling, the walls, even under the bed. I reached for my flashlight. Its beam caught movement in the darkness. A figure crouched there, limbs bent impossibly, hair clinging wetly to its face. Hollow eyes stared into mine. Mouth opened in that grotesque, frozen grin. I ran, barefoot, into the night, out of my apartment, down the street. When I reached the empty park nearby, I looked back. The figure didn't follow, but I knew it would. It always follows. It doesn't need roads, paths, or trails. It waits in the darkness, drifting like water, patient, relentless. I've moved since then, twice. Each apartment, each house, each town. I tell myself it can't follow me everywhere. But sometimes at night, I feel the water rising beneath my feet, hear the wet, gurgling whispers, and I know it's still there. Waiting, drifting, patient. I haven't gone fishing since. I haven't gone near a lake or river. I avoid the sound of dripping water. I avoid quiet nights. But sometimes, in my dreams, I see moonlit lake, and the shapes drift across it, pale and fluid, waiting for the moment I stop running. And I know one day they'll find me. I thought fishing alone at night was peaceful. I thought the darkness was just silence. I was wrong. By the time the river whispered my name, I realized some waters don't just reflect the night, they hold it, and it holds you. Fishing had always been my escape from the city, from deadlines and meaningless conversations, from the constant hum of people in their lives. I liked the solitude, the feeling that for once the world stopped spinning and only the water mattered. But the creek near Blackwater, the one everyone in town avoided after dark, had a history I didn't fully appreciate until that night. They said people had vanished there over the years. I thought it was folklore, a way for old-timers to scare teenagers. I was wrong. I arrived just after dusk, the last streaks of sunlight vanishing behind dense pines. Mist drifted above the water, curling and swirling like smoke that refused to disperse. The creek looked calm, but the surface shimmered oddly, as if hiding something beneath. I parked my truck at the trailhead and carried my gear down a narrow path lined with thick underbrush. The smell of wet earth filled my nose, rich and heavy, but there was something else, metallic, sharp, I couldn't place. The dock at the creek's bend was old, rotting in parts, leaning slightly to the left. I set up my rod, baited my hook, and cast into the dark water. Minutes passed. Nothing. Then a tug, sudden and violent. I yanked back, expecting a fish, but the weight resisted as if anchored to something immense beneath. My heart raced. I struggled with the rod, but whatever I'd hooked pulled deeper, slower, intelligent, deliberate. The bobber disappeared under the water entirely, then jerked violently again. I nearly fell into the creek as a chilling realization struck me. This wasn't a fish. Something massive, something alive, was beneath me, testing me. Suddenly, the line went slack. I reeled it in, heart hammering, expecting to find the hook snagged on a submerged branch. But when I looked at the water, I froze. Ripples distorted the surface in impossible circular patterns. Then I heard it, a whisper. My name, low, wet, gurgling, almost drowned, carried on the cool night air. I spun around, searching the misty shoreline. Nothing. But the whisper came again, closer this time. Help me. I stumbled backward, nearly losing my footing. The air felt suddenly heavier, oppressive, as if something from the creek had moved closer, though I couldn't see it. Then a pale, elongated figure rose from the water. Limbs bent at impossible angles, head tilting unnaturally. Its face was obscured by dripping black hair, but the void where its eyes should be fixed on me. The line jerked again, pulling the rod from my hands. I ran. Branches tore at my jacket. Roots clawed at my boots. Every instinct screamed at me to escape. Behind me, the soft splashes of water grew louder, accompanied by wet, dragging footsteps on the muddy bank. I didn't dare look back. Not until I reached my truck. I slammed the door, locked it, and sank against it, shaking. My headlights illuminated the creek for only a fraction of a second, but I swear I saw the figure crouching in the mist, watching. It didn't move into the woods. It didn't disappear. It stayed, patient, waiting. Even now, weeks later, I feel the cold, wet touch of its fingers in my dreams, and sometimes I swear I hear a gurgling whisper in the distance. Blackwater Creek isn't just water. It's a mouth that swallows people and names, and one night, it almost swallowed me.